So, a little bit of news came out of this morning, and if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, we're talking Winnipeg Jets and New York Rangers again. In the offseason, yet again, the Rangers and the Winnipeg Jets are linked together. If it's not Kevin Hayes, it's Jacob Trouba. So, yeah, it's only natural that we go from Trouba to Kopp, and then from Kopp to Pierre-Luc Dubois. So, clearly, the Rangers and Jets train has just all but stopped. So, we're going to actually go to Twitter very, very quickly. I'm going to show you the rumor I was talking about when I stumbled across this morning. Frank Saravelli. Oh, let's see what Saravelli tweeted. Fuck off, Frank Saravelli. It's not the one I was looking for. Where did I have? I believe it was France. We'll click on Dee's tweet because she responded to it. There we go. So I speak perfect French. So I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. Just read this part. This part doesn't exist. I'm going to read it. I'm going to tell you what it says in French, but I'm not reading from there. I'm just telling you what I know. What he's saying is, by the way, according to information obtained during the final, the Rangers of New York would be more than interested in acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois. Ongoing negotiations with the Jets on the parameters of a transaction. It's not done, but Drury is very interested. As you can see, I clearly read that, translating it with my own knowledge and not using Twitter because I speak French fluently. Bonjour. Bon appetit. I'm fluent in French, I promise. I don't speak French. I don't know French. I'm sorry. But, anyways, I digress. This one was a little bit tricky for me. I'm not going to lie to you. So the reason I say it was tricky is because I was very unsure about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I thought, notice how I use past tense there. I thought there were better options on the table. Much better options on the table. And TBH, as the cool kids say, Dubois was towards the bottom of my list of players I wanted until I did a little bit of research. And I found some shite that had me very interested in Pierre-Luc Dubois. Don't ask me why I went Scottish there. I'm watching Sons of Anarchy. That's probably why. I love Chips. Chips is my favorite character. I hope he doesn't die. Anyways, I digress. We're moving on. Relax. Calm down. Pierre-Luc Dubois on Hockey Reference. First things first. You guys know I'm not a big fancy stats guy. I don't know what they mean. But I know what some of them mean. And I know Corsi equals good if it's above 50%. And in the case of Pierre-Luc Dubois, at even strength, his Corsi 51.7. I'm sorry, that was Femnick. 51.6. Which would put him in the upper echelon of the league. One of the better players in terms of even strength possession metrics. Which is pretty impressive considering Pierre-Luc Dubois is considered a real defensive liability. Just saying. I'm just saying. Moving on. Another thing I like about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm sorry. We'll go with the like. We'll do the dislike first. Takes a lot of penalties. We're gonna get to that in a minute. Face-offs, pretty unreliable in the dot, I would say. The Rangers struggle significantly in the. Okay, now that my bottle is done making air bubbles at me. The Rangers struggle significantly in the face-off dot. One of the worst teams in the league in the past 10 years. And getting worse continually. But, as we've learned in this past playoffs and playoffs prior, apparently face-offs don't make a huge difference. And I believe the majority, if not all of the teams that have won the Stanley Cup in the past 15 years, I have to double-check that stat, were worse in the face-off dot. Or some of them were in the bottom feeding parts of the NHL in the face-off dot. So maybe I'm just putting a little bit too much weight there. But something about winning face-offs is just awfully attractive, and it's a weird correlation between winning and having a bad face-off record. I don't know. I don't care. Moving on. He blocks shots, surprisingly. Almost half a shot a game, which for your top-line scoring center, interesting. He hits a lot. Does not shy away from the bod. Over a hit a game. Almost a hit and a half per game. Again, for a scoring center, kind of crazy. Takeaways to giveaways. Despite him being a strictly offensive player with a big lack of defensive ability, his takeaways to giveaways, not that bad. This year is a bit of an outlier. Granted, Winnipeg sucked, so you can give him a pass. Years past, his takeaways and giveaways have been quite close. Interesting. Now, you guys know how much I like Jay Fresh and his cards, so let's look at it. 2 years ago, Pierre-Luc Dubois was in the 90th percentile in WAR. Damn. Even strength offense at 94%. Defense, yuck, 25%. Decent, I say good finisher. Sorry, above average finisher. Goals, assists, passes, QOC, whatever that means. And QOT. I don't know what that means. Quality of something. But either way, good numbers. Then he went to Winnipeg. I'm sorry. This is the beginning of the season he got traded. Or the season prior. Something like that. He was eating shit. Eating crow, some would say. He goes to Winnipeg, better team, becomes a better player. This is kind of where we're sitting today. This was published February 19th of this past year. Anything past that is not taken into consideration. You can imagine not much changed. In the 78th percentile, still pretty good. Not bad, at the very least. 24 years old. He's got a year left. I'm sorry, I believe he's a RFA this year. Just double checking. Yes, he's an RFA, so the Rangers would need to sign him. The numbers are still there. He's kind of coming back to where he was at his peak in Columbus. Now, you could certainly argue that his peak in Columbus was when Artemi Panarin and Cam Atkinson were on his flanks. How much that factors into it, I don't know. It's a tough gauge because he's definitely fallen off from where he was at. Now, he's still young. He's 24 years old. He's a big body. He hasn't had awful injury history, but he's had injury history. Who is texting me? Ignore that. That's kind of where we're sitting today with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Again, good offensively, defensively, a total liability. All those numbers would kind of need to bump up a little bit if he's going to be a long-term acquisition. If you look at the NHL stats, we're going to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois and his penalties. 106 penalty minutes last year. 106! That is a lot. As a matter of fact, Pierre-Luc Dubois was the most penalized player in the league last year. He took more penalties than anybody else in the league. It's a lot. 43 minors. He's taken a minor penalty just above every other game. But Pierre-Luc Dubois also drew the most penalties in the league last year. So there's a bit of give and take. Pierre-Luc Dubois clearly is the type of player that does not like to give up on the puck. He works his ass off. He doesn't stop skating. He's going to draw a lot of penalties, and he's going to take a lot of penalties. Now, the New York Rangers. Hold on, this is what I want to really show. So, the penalties drawn per 60. Minimum 30 games played. 11th in the whole league. Pretty damn impressive. Penalties taken per 60. Where's your bitch ass at? 30th. Takes a lot of penalties. And his net penalties per 60, that .2 something, not even the top 50. So, as nice as he is that he puts you on the power play often, he puts you on the penalty kill often, and his net is ever so slightly positive in a .23. So, technically he's a net positive, but, well, it all depends on where you see things. The Rangers' penalty kill was decent. Rangers' power play was really good. In terms of penalties taken last season, the Rangers were in the top half of disciplined teams. If you take out Ryan Strome and you insert Pierre-Luc Dubois in that same spot, they go in the upper half of penalized teams. But at the same time, if you look at penalties drawn, the New York Rangers are in the bottom echelon. If you switch Ryan Strome and insert Pierre-Luc Dubois, they move just ahead and just into the top half of the league. It's give and take with Pierre-Luc Dubois. It really is. I really want him, but comes at a cost. If you look at the summary, we're going to go to power play percentage. Let's do the power play first. Power play in the league last year, the New York Rangers ranked 4th. That's pretty damn good. An extra, 20 or 30 power plays would serve the Rangers pretty damn good, considering they're scoring once every 4 tries. You could say the Rangers would have had, 5 to 10 more power play goals last season. Pretty damn good. The Rangers' penalty kill was not bad by any means. 7th in the league. You add a few more penalties on there, they probably go a few goals. Maybe they hover around the 10 to 12 mark in PK. So technically they could afford the penalties against, and they could certainly eat the power plays for. It's what makes Pierre-Luc Dubois such an interesting player. He might take a shitload of penalties, lead the league in them, but he also draws the most. So it depends where you give it and take in there. Back to what I said about face-off win percentage earlier in the video. The Rangers sat 9th to last in the league. Now, compare Dubois to Strome, and the Rangers would actually slightly move up. So it's not a huge loss. It's just not really necessarily a great game. Interesting little nugget about Pierre-Luc Dubois. The best season of his career, he played with Artemi Panarin, which was, ironically, Panarin's last year in Columbus. 61 points, 82 games. Makes you wonder if they could find that fire again. Now, another question would be, well, Pierre-Luc Dubois, 24-year-old center, former 3rd overall pick, must have a lot of value. Well, probably does. Now, he's a pending RFA. No one really knows what he's asking for. You got to imagine he probably wants somewhere between the $6 to $8 million season range. Depends on how much you... So I was going to sneeze, I did, and it was just a yawn. But it all depends on who you ask and how many years you give him. If you give him a lot of years, he's probably going to want a lot of money. He made it clear in Winnipeg he wants to test UFA. Now, is that his way of saying, just get me the fuck out of here, I just don't want to sign long-term with you? Or does he not want to sign long-term in general? Nobody knows. But we're not really worried about that. We're worried about what the hell is it going to cost to get this guy. Well, I got 2 comparables. The first one I got is Ryan Johansson, former 4th overall pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets, drafted in 2010, traded 6 years later at the ripe age of 24. Now, Ryan Johansson was a mid-season trade. Does that really change the values a lot? I don't believe so. Ryan Johansson, you could argue his track record for Pierre-Luc Dubois was a little bit better. Despite being taken a pick later, his points per game, goals per game, and assists per game were all higher, at least in the years leading up to his trade. Pierre-Luc Dubois has never had a 70-point season. Ryan Johansson has. And Ryan Johansson had a 70-point season on a much weaker team with no Artemi Panarin. So you could really make the case that Ryan Johansson is the more valuable asset. I believe Ryan Johansson had already signed his contract. I'm going to double check that. Johansson. Ryjo. No, he was traded in 20... So similar to where we're at now. Had roughly a year left when he was traded. So it's interesting. It really is. Because he was coming up on being a UFA, but still had half a season to play. Dubois is just an RFA. Both of them RFA, sorry. So it makes you wonder, how close are their values? Well, to tell you the truth, I'd say they're exactly the same. I don't really see a difference. You could argue that Ryan Johansson might have had more value because he was a better scorer at the time, a little bit more consistent, and wasn't really coming off a down year. It was actually coming off one of the best years, if not the best year of his career. Actually, it was. And he really hasn't come close since. Johansson was also a 30-goal scorer at a time where the goals per game were a lot less in the NHL. Dubois has still yet to hit the 30-goal plateau. So yeah, I would say Rajo had pretty good amount more value. Now, here's the problem with Ryan Johansson trade. It's a tough comparable because it was a 1-for-1 deal involving Cjeths Jones going the other way. Cjeths Jones was a very young defenseman at the time of his trade. Back in 2016, 6 years ago, Cjeths Jones was 21 years old. Who's the comparable here? I don't really think the Rangers have one. Unless they're going to trade Keandre Miller 1-for-1 for Pierre-Luc Dubois, I just don't see it happening. It's a tough comparable for that reason and that reason only. If you're looking at raw value, I think your best bet is Bobby Ryan. Bobby Ryan was 26 years old at the time of his trade. Former 2nd overall pick. 4-time 30-goal scorer at the time of his trade. You lose 2 years of age, but you gain 4 more 30-goal seasons. Bobby Ryan, at the time of his trade, oopsie daisies. Wow, there were a lot of Bobby Ryans. A lot of Bobbies. Bobby Ryan, at the time of his trade, way back in the golden years of 2013, was 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. Kinda makes it tough. But you could really make the case that technically Pierre-Luc Dubois is also 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. And if what he's saying in Winnipeg upholds and is true and he wants to test unrestricted free agency, well, their contract values between Bobby Ryan and Pierre-Luc Dubois are exactly the same. The big difference is Bobby Ryan has scored 30 goals 4 times and Dubois hasn't done it. Now, here's where I'm going to give Pierre-Luc Dubois the benefit of the doubt. Pierre-Luc Dubois had 1 or 2 seasons with Artemi Panarin. Bobby Ryan had 4 years with both Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry in the primes of their career. So as much as I want to give Bobby Ryan the nod, we're actually going to give Pierre-Luc Dubois the nod. Because Dubois, if playing with similar teammates as Bobby Ryan the entire tenure of his Columbus career, we probably see similar if not better numbers. Now, where I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt maybe to Bobby Ryan is that Bobby Ryan actually put up those numbers. And sometimes GMs really don't give a shit what could have, should have, or would have happened. They give a shit about what happened. So we're going to call them about as close to even as you possibly can get. Both players 2 years away from UFA. Both had previous success. Both were under the age of 26, Dubois being 24, Bobby Ryan being 26, with success and just kind of need out of their current situation. Young players, their whole career ahead of them. You could argue that hockey players don't really tend to regress, at least the good ones, until they're around the ages of 32 to 34 years old. So they both have literally half of their careers still ahead of them, if not more. Now, Bobby Ryan traded for Jakob Silfverberg, Stefan Noesen, and Nick Ritchie. Say what you want about any of these players now. Back then they had value. Jakob Silfverberg, at the time of the trade, again, back in 2013, 9 years ago, was a 22-year-old, pretty damn good prospect. Jakob Silfverberg was doing quite good in Ottawa. Killed it in the Swedish Elite League, second-round pick, and actually made a pretty good impact his first couple years in the NHL, considering he was playing middle to bottom 6 minutes. Jakob Silfverberg, you put him on against anybody in the Rangers, I would say your closest comparable is Philip Hedl. Stefan Noesen, or Noesen, I don't know how to fucking say his name, at the time of the trade, was 2 years away, separated from being a first-round pick, 21st overall. He was 20 years old, a youngin', some would say. The problem with Stefan Noesen was we have no record of him playing any professional hockey games outside of juniors. Juniors is not professional. Whose value would I compare him to in the Rangers organization? Well, that just depends. Personally, looking at his numbers in the O show, I don't think he has as much value as someone like a Brennan Ottman. I don't think he's quite there. However, you could make the debate that his value probably floats somewhere in the realm of maybe a Nils Lundqvist. And the reason I say that is this. Aside from them playing totally different positions, their value at the time was quite high. Noesen was a point per game in the O show. He was turning professional next year and was a former first-round pick. Nils Lundqvist killed it in the Swedish Elite League. He has professional season now under his belt, and he's probably ready to play in the NHL next year, but the Rangers really don't have a spot for him, especially on that right side. Braden Schneider has all but guaranteed that spot for himself next season. I would compare Stefan Noesen to Nils Lundqvist. So now we have Philip Hedl and Nils Lundqvist. Well, what about Nick Ritchie? Nick Ritchie's where it gets tough. Sank. Nick Ritchie was not on the Ottawa Senators at the time of the trade. He was a first-round pick. And he was a first-round pick that was traded an entire year before they knew where that draft pick was. Ottawa, I am sure, had full confidence within them that that first-round pick they traded was going to be in the 20s, and in their hopeful case, 30th overall. So, you would compare that first-round pick that turned to Nick Ritchie to the Rangers' first-round pick in 2023. Nothing more, nothing less. Looking at the Winnipeg Jets' needs up and down their lineup throughout their entire team, their NHL team is what it is at this point. Their minor league system is what it is at this point. They don't have any strengths. They don't really have any weaknesses. They kind of just need a little bit of everything and to continue to build. An offer containing Filipino, Nils Lundqvist, and a first-round pick allows them to do that. In terms of the Winnipeg Jets forwards, if we want to just very quickly, actually, fuck it, we're gonna go this route because I'm just gonna do this real quick. Nikolai Ehlers, Winnipeg Jets. Right. They've got forward prospects coming up in the future. They might not be totally interested in Filipino. Well, Filipino can also play the wing. He's actually found more success on the wing. Probably pretty interested in Filipino. Now, the Rangers interested in getting rid of Filipino? Absolutely not. But you got to give to get. And I think right now the Rangers value Capo over Filipino, considering Capo was their second overall pick. And the Rangers probably don't want to give up on that kid at the age of 21. So, yeah, I would certainly say Chytil would be a part of the deal. Now, defensively, they don't really have very many top-end prospects. They have Ville Heinola, but is that really top-end? I don't think so. Nils Lundqvist could very well be in the NHL next year, help him man the blue line. I would say they're quite interested in the player. So, for the Rangers, what does that deal look like? Filipino, Nils Lundqvist, the first-round pick in 2023, one of the best drafts that has ever been seen. The Rangers give up a first-round pick in it. I'm sure Winnipeg will be quite interested in it. For Pierre-Luc Dubois. Submit the trade, and there you have it. The Rangers have Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, a lot of questions need to be answered. Like, what the fuck are the Rangers going to do with themselves? They have so much shit they got to re-sign. Well, if you go through the... I should have done this off camera. I apologize. Capo, you got to imagine, is going to re-sign close to a Filipino deal. So there you go. There's the money you saved on Filipino. This is the roster you have now. Well, now you've got to re-sign Pierre-Luc Dubois. Well, what do you re-sign Pierre-Luc Dubois for? If you want to give this kid the Supermax, you got to expect at minimum that range. And he's probably going to want more. $7.5 million a year for the next 8 years. This is what you're left with. Well, this isn't a very filled out roster, is it? Assuming the Rangers somehow bribe anybody to take... I'm just clicking on the Oilers, not the Oilers. Somehow the Rangers can bribe someone to take Patrick Nemeth. Well, now they got $5.8 million. This is great. Aren't we having fun? Not quite yet, actually. You call up Zachary Jones. You got that part of the lineup sorted. Your defense, set, stone, ready to go. You move on to signing UFAs. You've got to get yourself a goaltender. I already did this in my live stream. I showed you what goaltender I wanted the most. And it was... Where did he go? Scott Wedgwood. You get Wedgwood on a 2-year. $1 million a year. Probably can get him for less than that, but we're just going to be realistic about it. And now you're kind of cooking a bit. But you still have 2 forward spots you got to fill. Well, how the hell do you fill these forward spots? Gee, I don't know. You go back to your RFAs. You go to the New York Rangers. Well, you're shit out of luck. Rangers don't really have any RFAs that are good to re-sign right now. If you go to the Rangers UFAs, doopa-doopa-doo. You play pick your poison. Can you re-sign a guy like Frank Vatrano? Sure. Does Frank Vatrano want to re-sign here? I don't know. But if you get him at that price tag, it's not half bad. Well, now you need a 4th-line center. Where are you finding the money to do that? You got $1 million left. So you take Frank Vatrano, and now you can't re-sign him. Matter of fact, you can't re-sign any of these guys. Maybe Tyler Mott. Mott's probably going to want $2 million a year. Let's pretend Tyler Mott comes back and takes a cap-friendly deal. There's your 4th-line center, $1.7 million. You've got $2 million working now, and you need another forward, and then you need 3 scratches. Well, excuse you. You call Vitaly Krasov, that saves you a little bit of money. You got your 3rd line sorted, but Dryden Hunt and Ryan Reeves are in your lineup every single night. You move Ryan Reeves to the scratches. Who do you call up? I wouldn't call up any of these guys. Unless you get a little funny, you get a little weird, and you experiment with some underrated UFAs, because I don't really see anybody in the system you could sign. And then from there, I don't know where the hell you go, because I just don't see it. Right now, the Rangers are stuck. If you acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois and sign him long term, you don't have a fourth line winger unless you play Reeves all year long. And then you have $1.3 million to use for 3 spots you have to fill in this roster on your scratches list. I just don't see how the Rangers do it. I don't. I don't. If the Rangers are going to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois, they're going to need to find a way to shell out more money elsewhere. And I don't know who that is. But as of right now, money-wise, I just don't see the Rangers being able to do it and keep him long-term. Especially considering the year after this, you need to re-sign Alexis Lafreniere, Zach Jones, and Keandre Miller. And Kravtsov and Blais. Unless Jacob Trouba disappears, I don't see it happening. This is also taking into account that we traded Patrick Nemeth, assuming the Rangers do so and don't buy him out, maximizing how much cap space you can get in return. I don't know. You guys got to comment down below and let me know. I drew it out for you guys. You give your thoughts. Is Pierre-Luc Dubois really possible? If so, what do the Rangers have to give up to get him? To tell you the truth, I want Pierre-Luc Dubois. After doing the research I did on him, I'm pretty sold on him. But at what cost? Can we keep him forever? And who has to go the other way? You guys comment below, let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.